Thanks for joining us here on Service School Stories. Your hosts for this season are Alec Emmert, Service School CEO and Navy veteran,
and Sydney Mathis, Chief Program Officer and former college admissions officer. This season will cover topics as it relates to higher education, military service transition, and career opportunities and outcomes for veterans. Join us as we share student stories, inside tips from the admissions office, and conversations with employers actively hiring student veterans. Here we go.
All right. On today's episode, we are joined by former Service to School applicant Mo Han. Mo was a medic during his time in the U.S. Army and is one of Stanford's incoming students for the fall semester. Mo, thanks for joining us today and sharing your journey with our listeners. Can you start by introducing yourself and telling everyone a little bit about your background?
Hi, thanks to S2S for having me here today. I am a Army veteran who served under the 10th Mountain Division for 4 years. I was born and raised in China and immigrated to the United States when I turned 13, and I've lived in Oregon, Massachusetts, and New York up until this point. And I just turned 26 about 5 days ago.
Oh, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, excited to chat with you today and kind of hear a little bit about your journey to Stanford. Absolutely. But let's back it up a little bit. So you mentioned that your family immigrated here from China. At what point did joining the Army kind of come across your plate?
Yeah, it was a total chance event. It was never on my radar until I knew about it. And like many other immigrant families, we came here for the purpose of grabbing that degree. And U.S. college is just expensive. I
It
was
is.
I was at a top 40 private liberal arts college, which costed around 70,000 a year for tuition and board total in 2018, and it didn't make sense to me to end up with $200,000 in debt, but with an not special degree, and I didn't have what it takes to complete a college degree. My grades were okay. I had a 3.5 cumulative GPA, but I would skip morning classes just to get a few more hours of sleep, and I would spend more time partying and socializing than working on my projects. So I didn't have the discipline. I didn't have the motivation of what it takes to perform highly in college. And another big part of the reason I joined was to gain that personal growth that the Army eventually provided me.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much to take away from, your time in service as it applies to academics and what that future, discipline and motivation can look like. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second later on. But let's start talking about your MOS and kind of how you used that as an opportunity to kind of now pursue pre-med at Stanford. So for our listeners, share a little bit about what your job was in the Army.
Right. I was a 6A whiskey combat medic in the Army, and that was also taking on that job was also a chance event. It had a lot to do with my status as a foreign national without a secret clearance, and the fact that my recruiters recommended it to me. So I took it, and I practiced under physicians, assisting in minor procedures and administering medications, which are usually done by medical students during their third year of their clinical rotation. So I skipped a lot. I got lucky and skipped a lot of academic work there, and I went on 2 combat deployments with my unit, and I was really appreciative of the real life experience I've gained through those deployments, and I was able to work with patient firsthand and sometimes witness their recovery, which was a super fulfilling experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing we try and help applicants understand here at Service to School is kind of those connections between their military experience and maybe what they want to study or major or a future career, right? So before joining as a medic, was going into the field of medicine ever on your radar?
No, it was not. I was going to.
What did you think you initially wanted to do?
I was taking introductory CS courses, and I wanted to do a CS and business double major at Brandeis University, which was the liberal arts university I talked about, and it was just popular. I didn't really have like a my own reason for doing it. I was doing it because everyone else was doing it, and it was
Yep.
just it promised a higher paying job, I guess. And after 4 years of real life medical experience under my belt, I just feel like ditching that part entirely behind me. It doesn't make sense, and plus I don't really hate the experience, and that says a lot about wanting to become physicians, because compared to a lot of 18-year-olds who says they want to become pre-med but they have no idea what to
Yeah.
expect coming ahead of them.
For sure. And I think that's a really important point, Mo, is that, a lot of our applicants have that real world experience, whether or not it's directly, pertaining to your academic field, or there's a way that you can kind of translate those experiences in the military. There's a lot of experiences that veterans have that are valuable and beneficial within the classroom. So when you can, help an admissions committee understand that, look, I have a lot of these skills that you all are looking for, and you can demonstrate that success. I mean, that just allows for a more successful admissions cycle, which I want to pivot to. When you began thinking about, okay, I'm going to get out, I'm going to go back to school, I'm going to give this another shot, where did you begin with your college admissions process?
Yeah, as I was approaching my inevitable ETS date, I began within approximately like a year of leaving service. I began signing up for online courses. I had picked Northeastern University College of Professional Studies because my familiarity with the General Boston School for living in the area,
Mhm.
and I began doing my research, and that's when I found services school. So as I was going through my transition courses, I was also taking two classes at a time while writing my college application essay.
Yeah. And why was it important for you to take those two classes?
Because I thought it would be too abrupt to just return to like a real traditional campus and not knowing what to expect. I was pretty much like warming up to the academic environment.
Yeah, that was smart, forward thinking. Okay, so then you found service to school, signed up, you get paired with an ambassador here on our team. Talk with our listeners about what were some of the either overwhelming parts about the admissions process. Were there any parts of the process that you enjoyed? And what was kind of, looking back, what are some things that you wish you would have, known before going in?
So my ambassador is Isaac Kim, which was super helpful the entire way, super accessible. I can't say enough good things about him. About the college application process, it's just like a daunting process, right? The whole thing is just a overwhelming load of information thrown at you depending on how many schools you're applying to. And one thing that really helped me clear my vision about what I wanted to do was attending the S2S panels, which really like clears things up a little bit for those who have no experience applying to universities before. Things I wish I knew, and attending those panels, you'll gain like knowledge that you never knew before. A lot of the top tier colleges have veteran specific programs. To list a few, there's Brown has its own veteran applications for veterans only, so you're treated separately from the general pool of applicants. And University of Chicago has a whole one-stop shop for veterans as well. Their admission officers are super outreaching and helpful. And Cornell has Cornell and Stanford both have their own portal for uploading your VetLink addendum, which was an important part of my application from S2S. So to get my point across, there's so many schools out there with special programs for veterans. You just have to do research, and attending one of the S2S panels is a great way to get informed about those, because a lot of the times they will have admission officers from those schools to talk about their special programs for veterans.
Yeah, a lot of the admissions process is like drinking water out of a fire hose, right? It's just kind
Yeah.
of like constant stream. A lot of it, you don't know what you don't know, or a lot of it doesn't really make sense until you're kind of like deep into it, right? And I think that's definitely one of the benefits to coming to either the service to school event or outreaching to, admissions officers that work specifically with veterans in the military connected community, is they are there as a dedicated resource to answer your very specific questions as it pertains to you. Because the needs of adult learners and student veterans throughout the admissions process are different from a traditional high school student. So solid plug there for kind of connecting and using a network that is built to support veterans throughout a very murky college admissions process. When it came to writing essays, what do you think was your biggest, either like the biggest piece of advice that helped you, or what advice do you have for other people as they're starting to write their college essays?
College essays. I would say definitely invest most of your time on that central piece, which is called a personal statement. Either personal statement if you're a freshman, or transfer statement if you're a transfer student like me. Because that's like the one essay you're sending to all the schools you're applying to, and you just need to work it to perfection. Have it read over by at least like multiple people. They'll give you different perspectives, so to avoid like narrow-mindedness, like you have one person read, they say it's good, in fact it might not be good in other people's opinions. And you have to make sure when you revise your essays you do it with a fresh mindset. If you're like all worked up and you read your essay, you won't catch all the mistakes in it. Yeah, that's what I would say about writing college essays.
Yeah, that's the one part of the process when people are like, I didn't realize it was going to take so long to write all of the essays, right? Because especially when you're telling stories about yourself, that's not like normal for people to kind of just like sit down and write about themselves all day long. So when it comes time to crunch the number of essays that you're cranking through, it's easy to get overwhelmed when you're looking at sometimes 4 or 5 different supplement essays in addition to that main meat and potatoes one, like you mentioned, the personal statement or the transfer statement. Um, how did you identify Stanford as the school you were going to enroll in for the fall?
Besides its prestige and just the weight of the name, I actually visited the campus about 10 years ago now. That was when I first came to the States. I just remember the beautiful campus and the mild and pleasant weather, and it just has ever since been under my radar to apply to the school
Yeah.
eventually.
Did you visit any other campuses?
Well, living in Boston for after a while now, I've visited MIT, I've visited Harvard, basically all the Metro
Mhm.
Bostonian schools, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Mostly schools in Boston area.
Right. Yeah, we talk a lot about college visits, and for some people, it's one getting a feel for either the size of campus or if it's urban, how does that kind of work with the city? But one thing I think is really important to tap into when students are doing college visits is kind of like, how do you feel when you're on that campus? It's kind of like test driving a car. How's it feel when you're sitting in the driver's seat? If you have the opportunity to get on college campuses, even if it's a school that you might not necessarily be on your list, I encourage students typically to like go visit a big school, go visit a small school, right? They're going to kind of push and pull differently, but to be able to get a feel for what it truly feels like on that campus, the best way to do that is to physically, if you can, put some boots on the ground. With now, so you're starting at Stanford here soon. What has that transition into academia been like for you, and what are you most looking forward to?
Right. So the timeline for transfers, my timeline, I separated from service uh this March, so about 5 months ago. Um, and the transfer application deadline is also in March. So that was a tight and tricky period for me. As soon as I separated from service, I didn't have too much time reminiscing with my uh, old town friends. I went straight into more college papers writing, and at the same time taking classes at my Northeastern College of Professional Studies. One thing that really helped me to remain in that like academic mindset was attending one of the Warrior Scholar Project's boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
It really gave me a sense of what it's like to be in a higher education. Um, but also, it's great for what we previously talked about, which is if you wanted to visit campus, that's a perfect opportunity for you to do that. You spend a week or two on any college you would like to go to, um, and you gain like a really good feel about what the university vibe is like. So just make sure you sign up ahead of time because it fills up super quickly. But that experience definitely helped me remain in like retain my motivation and drive even after I separate from service because I hear this a lot of veterans lose their sense of purpose or drive after they're out of that environment. So being forcing myself back into that environment kind of helped,
Yeah,
and that was a good transition. Yeah.
for sure. And then are you studying, what's your going to be your academic major?
I'm planning on doing human biology at Stanford.
Very cool. Have they reached out about any like courses or orientation? What's that been like?
I'm currently in the planning phase of my declaring my major. There's a series of core requirements you have to take before you declare, and I because I'm starting as a sophomore, I plan on declaring that pretty much at the end of my sophomore year, and I'm pretty sure I'm going with that major though, but it could still be subject to
Could
changes.
always change your mind, right? But at the end of the day, still kind of thinking you're on the medical track, right?
Yes.
Very cool. As we wrap up, what is the last piece of advice you would give to someone who was either considering, pursuing an academic major for medicine related, or someone that is even, earlier in that transition process and just starting to think about college after their time in the military?
I myself don't know that much about medical school preparation besides the MCAT and all the STEM courses you have to take. My advice is talk to your school's medical advising. They should have one, and their advisor will sit with you and go through all the courses you're required to take, and that's pretty much the point of contact you would want to find. But in terms of general college application, I guess as a veteran applicant, I I will start out by suggesting you would want to apply to as many schools as you can because most, if not all, schools just waive that application fee. You save thousands of dollars by just applying to as many schools as you can, but also know what you can handle before you add anything to your plate. Check your calendar, which is another important point. You want to get a calendar. You want to jot every major deadline down before you do anything. That way you never miss an important day, and you never miss applying to a college.
Yeah, great advice. Well, Mo, thank you so much for joining us on the Service to School Stories podcast today. I'm very excited to continue to watch, the success that you have at Stanford, and we hope that you'll keep us in the loop as your time there, takes off and you progress throughout your studies. But I know our listeners are incredibly, rewarded for being able to hear your story and your journey to Stanford. So, Mo, thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super appreciative of having the opportunity to work with S2S, and I wish the organization the best as well.
Thanks. Take care.
That's all we have for this episode. Join us next week, same time, same place, where we share more Service to School stories. Service to School Stories is hosted by Sydney Mathis, Chief Program Officer, and Alec Emmert, Service to School CEO. Our podcast is produced and edited by our Director of Communication, Amanda Tobias. Service to School is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free college admission support to transitioning service members and veterans. Join us next week and follow us for more on your favorite social media platforms.